Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So I take back everything mean that I ever said about U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich. Um, as I'm sure you all know, if you've been watching the show for a while, I've been very critical of many of her early rulings in the January 6 cases. She was a Trump appointee, and it seemed like she was kind of a January 6 apologist. But as time went on, I think she kind of realized that this was not a peaceful protest. These were not just tourists calmly walking through the Capitol, because her sentencing decisions grew tougher in the last couple of years. And now she has ordered one of Donald Trump's pardoned January 6 convicts to return to federal prison. So here's the deal with this guy. In August of 2024, 48-year-old Kentucky resident Dan Wilson was sentenced to prison for 5 years for his part in the Capitol attack. Wilson had pleaded guilty to the felony charge of conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer. Well, he was one of the more than 1,500 people that, January 6 participants who received a pardon from Donald Trump. So Wilson was released, and this was after he had only spent about 5 months in prison for his violent crime, because Wilson was one of the vast majority of January 6ers who was allowed out on pretrial release. So, MAGA likes to say, oh, they've all been locked up and, they're political prisoners. They've been in prison now for 4 years. That total and complete nonsense, total bullshit. Most of these people, the vast majority, or only maybe like 2 or 3 dozen, who were the most violent or who had massive rap sheets from previous crimes, usually violent, that were still locked up after they were initially arrested. But this guy was allowed out. So he got arrested for January 6th, got released on no bond, essentially, just his own personal recognizance. So he was a free man until his sentencing, which was in August of last year. But Wilson had also taken a plea deal for another crime. So over the course of the January 6th case, he also was hit with charges. They were initially just state charges for illegal possession of a firearm by a felon. And he has quite a rap sheet and several felonies on his record. So the government had written in their January 6th sentencing memo that in July of 1994, Wilson was convicted of 2 felony counts of burglary in the second degree and unlawful transaction with a minor. So, that's also a felony. In December of 1995, Wilson was convicted of another felony. So that was theft by unlawful taking over $300. And then in 1997, Wilson was convicted of the felony crime of escape in the second degree. So he was not allowed to own any kind of firearms. But when the FBI searched Wilson's house in relation to the January 6th case, which happened in June of 2022, they found 6 guns and rifles. They also found 4,800 rounds of ammunition. And they said that 2 of these 6 weapons had no serial numbers. So totally unlawful. And in Wilson's signed and dated statement of offense, which you see here on your screen, he acknowledged that he, quote, knowingly possessed at least 3 firearms with the knowledge that he had previously been convicted in a court of a crime punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year. It also said, quote, Edwin Wilson knowingly and voluntarily admits to all the elements of possession of an unregistered firearm. Specifically, the defendant admits that the defendant knowingly received and possessed a firearm, specifically a rifle with a 28-inch overall length and a 14-inch barrel, not registered to him. Again, criminal actions. So the weapons case, like I said, it was originally a state matter, but as Judge Friedrich pointed out, Wilson himself agreed to move this case over to the federal court to combine everything. So she said that Wilson, quote, waived trial in the Western District of Kentucky on the firearms offenses and consented to a transfer to this court. So the judge basically said, I have the final say now in regard to this firearms case because you agreed to that. And not essentially, you are going back to prison. And then she seemed to also throw some shade at Trump in her decision regarding his pardons, because Judge Friedrich also wrote in her order, quote, the court cannot discern any reason that it would be deprived of jurisdiction over the defendant, nor why his erroneous release would bar the government from reincarcerating him. So this all went down last Friday, February 7th, and the judge ordered Wilson, unfortunately, to self-surrender to the Bureau of Prisons to serve out the remainder of his term. So she is requiring that he serve the full 5-year sentence. So we'll see what happens with this. We'll see if, maybe this guy becomes another January 6th fugitive. I will let you know, but I would imagine he's not just going to willingly turn himself in to serve, another, 4.5 years or whatever it is. Can't see him really just doing that without a fight. We'll see. Like I said, I'll keep you posted. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.